Hey, everybody. So we're continuing in John. What a awesome gospel this is, and there's a purpose for everything he's writing. He's building an argument. You're going to start seeing trends, and I look forward to hearing back from you as you read it and start looking for that. He started off his text with the word, and we talked about that the word becoming the word being God, and and he clearly has a creational mandate as a roadmap to how to read his gospel, because in the beginning. Now he's going to move on. Right after that very important section, he has to continue. So basically, 1 to 14 is what we call the prologue. This whole section is an important build up to what he's trying to do with the gospel, and that's a good important thing for us to remind ourselves why he's written this gospel, and we're lucky that we have this. Now, Jesus did many other signs in the presence of the disciples, which are not written in this book. So what he's trying to say is there's a reason I chose these. But these are written so that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Messiah, the Son of God, another messianic title, and that by believing him you may have Zoe in his name, abundant life. So that's his purpose for us as the Christians, as people who have met God, that this gospel is given to us so we may have life, that we may believe, we may put our hopes into this God who is a creator, who is manifest in Jesus Christ. So he gets into the section today, and right after he's done this big section on the word and the darkness not being able to overcome the light, he jumps right into the historical world of this word when he becomes enfleshed. And he talks about this guy named John. There was a man sent from God whose name was John. This idea of sent from God was a very prophetic. John is going to be the last of the Israelite prophets. After that, Jesus Christ is, of course, God there. We're no longer prophesying the coming of the Messiah. Now we're looking back by apostles. John is an incredible figure. We know much about him. Notice he's not called John the Baptist, and that's led a lot of people to wonder why. In the other Gospels, he's always called John the Baptist. I could give you a bunch of reasons I've read, but I'll only give you the one I think's the best of the options, and that is because the writer of this gospel is John of Zebedee. I believe that, and he is called that in the other gospels. So John the Baptist has to be given his title to differentiate between John. But in John's gospel, he never mentions himself. He calls himself the beloved disciple. And so there's no reason to put the tag John the Baptist. They would all know John came to baptize Israel in the ancient world. And so that's why I think it was there. Now, he came as a witness. This is laying forth, again, more of what we're going to see in this gospel. This word witness comes from the courtroom of the ancient world, just like we have witnesses today that bear witness about the light. He's coming in, and this light is clearly Jesus, obviously, and God, but it's also the moral light, which he came in to say, listen, you guys are not living right as Israel. But he's also bearing witness. And John's gospel is very much a court drama that ends, of course, with in front of Pilate. And the constant thing is Israel's judging. They think they are judging Jesus to see whether he's the Messiah, but really God is judging Israel in Jesus Christ to see if they are the people of God. So he's come to bear witness. He's a witness in this courtroom drama, and that he might and his purpose is the same as John, that all might believe through him. Who? Through John, or in him is the other possibility here. I think what he's saying is he's using the light here to believe in him being the light, because he's already said that that Jesus is the light. So that's what I think that is. He was not the light, but came to bear witness about the light. You notice he says that bear witness twice. Like I've said to you, when something is said twice in these, it's their way of putting an exclamation mark. This is very important. He's in the dock bearing witness. The reason he has to say he's not the light is largely because people in the first century and later, there was some debate amongst the Jews who was the true Messiah. And some, of course, followed John. And you remember in Acts when they run into disciples of John and they ask him, have you been baptized into Jesus? And they said, no, we've been into John's baptism. So they had to differentiate between who John was and who the real Messiah and the true living God was. Okay. The true light, which gives light to everyone, was coming into the world. Here we got this word world, cosmos. Cosmos is an interesting word because it can be used in two ways. One, it's the created good world, the physical world. And number two, and he uses it in both, and we have to discern which he's doing. The second way, of course, is the world as a word that described humanity's rebellion against God, post Genesis 3. So when John uses in his letters, he says you can't love the world and love God. He's obviously not talking about the physical world. So here at the beginning, he says the true light, which gives light to everyone, which means I think what he's saying here is not that everyone receives the light and that some people have darkness, but it's light to everyone. It's there. It's revelation for everyone. There's no special group. Was coming into the world. This is clearly the world he created. This is the physical world, the good world. He was in the world, and the world was made through him. Clearly, this is the good world. Yet, and now we flip to the other world, the world did not know him. We see this as the reality, is this is a good God. So the tension isn't the good God or the good creation. It is the fact that the world has gone in rebellion, and that's why they don't know them. Then he flips into the next section. He says, he came to his own. Who is his own? Clearly, this is Israel. If you read the Old Testament, today you will be my people and I will be your God. These were his own. This is who he cherished. And this is the big issue that's going to happen in all the Gospels. And we shouldn't be really surprised if we've read our Old Testament that Israel is being judged on whether they will actually be, he will be their God and whether they will be his people. He came to his own, and of course, in John's gospel, his own people did not receive him, which is a shocker because they would have expected that they were going to be the people the Messiah was coming to save. Now, why didn't they receive them? This is what's really important in our next verse that I have to highlight. The Jews had markers. We all have markers. Markers that showed who was in and who was out. Those markers included Torah observance, things like circumcision, food laws, temple observance, festival observances, all of these markers, and of course, circumcision was a big one. These, as much when you practice these and you highlighted these, you were saying, I am a good Israelite. Now, Jews believed, unlike Christians, they didn't believe you had to believe in God. You were a child of God because you were born into it. You were a bloodline Abraham descendant. You lost that privilege only if you stopped practicing these markers. Obviously, the Gentiles were not involved in any of these discussions. There was some debate amongst them of whether whether the Gentiles could become part of Israel. The Shammite Pharisees, like Paul, when he was Saul, they would have believed no way. The Hillites gave options of possibilities. They would use the story of Rahab in that story. So this was the debate, and this is how they kept who was in and who was out. They had no belief system that anyone outside of Israel generally could be in. And remember that they're in because of those observances, the will of man, and the bloodline. So the next text is a shocking text if you're a first century Second Temple Jew. It overthrows a whole worldview, and it shows that God is going to reconstitute the people of God. And this is a huge text in John's gospel when understood historically. But to all who did receive him. Now we got this language receive, and it's beautiful because they don't receive him, his own people. This language is more than just believe. It's welcoming him in. When you receive someone into your home, it is definitely to believe in somebody and to honor them and to give your allegiance to it. But it's also that you welcome them in. Who believed in his name. You can see receive doesn't mean believe. We've got a double here of different things. Believed in his name, in his authority. That's what name means. It doesn't mean, I believe there was a Jesus. It means you believe he is the Word, the Son of God, that his way is the true way to be human. He gave the right to become the children of God. Now, this is the key. So the children of God is Israel. So now whoever believes in his name, just like Paul says, that it is salvation by faith that you are saved. He's being very consistent in this. John and Paul, in other words, would totally agree. He gave the right to become children of God. But what happened is everyone now is a child of Abraham because they believe, not because of bloodline. And that's what he's going to say. Or because of what we do or the markers we hold. Who were born not of blood. That's huge because remember, they believed they were people of God because of Israel. That's changed with Jesus. Nor the will of the flesh. Again, another concept of these markers, of these efforts, Torah observance, all this. These are not how you become a child of God anymore or maintain it, nor of the will of man. Now, this is interesting. This will of man, they believed that the man brought life, and so he was the agency of life when he would have procreate with his wife. So that was what he means by the will of man is, the will of the flesh. That will of the flesh is that that you would bring new creation and new Israel through procreation. What he's saying is that's not the way it happens now. It's not going to be generational anymore. This new life is not going to come through procreation in the human sense. It's now going to be through this new creation through Jesus Christ, through belief and faith. Nor the will of man. This is the Torah observance and all of those things. And then he just ends it and says, but of God. So it ends up ending on it is 100% by the grace of God, by his mercy, that the people of God, the children of God, people like you and myself who have received God are welcomed into this kingdom. So, yeah. All right, questions. Why might John's gospel bring John in at this point of his gospel? Why doesn't he give him the title the Baptist? You may want to think of other reasons why he may not. That's what I'm trying to invite there. All right. Number 2, why might God's own not have received him? Scripturally, should we be surprised if we look at the Old Testament? You could think of stories, perhaps, prophetic words that were said that was really challenging of whether Israel would follow God. And finally, what is the foundation of salvation according to John's gospel as laid out here? Does this fit what you've heard of salvation is all about? So have you heard different things? Do you see markers that mark true Christians in? Do we have our own markers we need to get rid of and go back to salvation just being from God? All right, have a great day.